I did some coding for that just because clients kept asking. And I had the ability to solve their problems. And I tell them I'm not a coder, but I can solve your problem. And then
I don't see the difference, right? Like that's
yeah,
what
yeah, technically
coding is
not if
really
you're
about.
getting paid to do it.
Welcome to Educative Sessions, a podcast series with people in the developer world about their coding experiences. My name is Lee Ngo. This is powered by Educative, which makes it easy for authors to provide interactive and adaptive courses for software developers. Today, my guest is Randy Hayes of House Chaos Games, and today we're going to talk about identifying programmer's disease, a concept that I find very interesting, and I'd love for Randy to really talk about more. So, Randy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Lee. I appreciate it.
I think there's a lot of context we have to set up before we go into this concept of yours. Let's first really talk about your own career into code, especially given that you've got quite a diverse professional background. So, really, at any point that you think is the starting point for your journey, let's go from there.
Well, I think the start, just because it's interesting for most coders these days, is my first computer was a PDP-8. Which you could type on a terminal, but in order to get in the lab, and this was in junior high, you had to fill out punch cards, feed the punch cards into the tape machine, get the tape, and then feed it into the computer. And if you did that enough times, the big boss of the lab would let you actually go in and type on a keyboard. So that was kind of my start. Then my first computer was a Radio Shack TRS 84K color computer. You hooked it up to a TV and used a tape recorder, which I still have to this day, to if you want to actually save anything you coded. Then I thought about running a coding business when I got out of college. Maybe approaching war game companies and converting those into computer games. I'm not sure coding was there yet. I'm not sure, the companies were ready for that quite yet. Yeah. Then I ended up getting into the business world. And at one point I did run a computer company. And I never have considered myself a coder. I've always just considered myself an amateur. I did some coding for that just because clients kept asking. And I had the ability to solve their problems. And I tell them I'm not a coder, but I can solve your problem. And then
I don't see the difference, right? Like that's
technically not if you're getting paid to do it. But
right, exactly.
Yeah. So then 5 years ago, I retired. Not a very good retired person. So I still do business consulting, which I've done since college, and started House Chaos Games to take the games I've built over the years and turn them into things that people can enjoy.
That's incredible. And what a illustrious career. Like you've already had I mean, that's one of my personal goals is I want to retire and then unretire because there's something that pulls me back into a great cause. And I mean, game design, once you kind of have the experience and know how to really inject your own passion, that's a fantastic place to be, right? So, gosh, I want to talk even more about like that, but let's bracket a lot about your work in the game design and talk about this concept that you introduced to me, which is programmer's disease. Let's define that. Like, what are you talking about when you mean this thing called programmer's disease?
Yeah, programmer's disease, and I call it engineer's disease sometimes, depending on the audience. Programmer's disease is where we deliver what was asked, but not what was really needed, would probably be a decent way to put that. So it almost becomes the malevolent genie thing, where you're in the desert and you ask for water and the genie dumps you in the middle of the ocean, So I think what happens as technical professionals is we get really locked on a solution. 1 + 1 = 2. Well, I'm asking, why we're adding 1 + 1 together. Or the other, a symptom of programmer's disease is sometimes we deliver the way we would consume the product or service, but not necessarily the way that the individual we're delivering to, the end user, is going to consume it. So we're like, well, why wouldn't you use it this way? Well, that person doesn't. They think different than you. They act different than you. So.
Right. So it sounds like it's a question of, and I don't want to knock people who are in that engineer/programmers mode, but there's a lack of empathy in the first onset of when a programmer comes up with a solution, right? Because their solutions work, right? That's not often the problem, but it's a question of, does it work in what sense, right? Is it work to accomplish the goal? Like, I think the analogy of drinking water is fantastic. You go and drink water, here's the ocean. But what is really the experience that the user's looking for? Is that sort of the questions that you think is lost in this disease?
Yeah, I think there's two modes of it, and one's a little more obvious, and that's the requirements.
Okay.
right? Because did we get good requirements from the end user? And sometimes as a coder, especially if you're far enough down the chain, you may not be involved in the requirements process. So that's tough if someone says add 1+1 and you say, here's your answer, it adds it and makes it 2. So I think requirements is the obvious one of getting good requirements, understanding what the end user really wants. The other level of that, though, which I think is kind of the, if you want to level up, so to speak, the other level of that for me is that empathy. You mentioned the word, right? The empathy of there's an end user. What is that end user trying to accomplish? How are they going to use this? And if I can get into that mode versus how I might use this and design this for them, who is the final user, as opposed to me, who's going to build it, test it, deliver it, and then move on to the next project.
Wow. Well, I think that's great. I think that's it seems to be a common theme that's emerging amongst a lot of developers, and maybe has been something that's been going on for forever, right? So how do we fix this? Like, what's the prescription? What's the medicine for this disease, right? And in some ways, is it actually helpful to have this disease? I want to even interrogate that possibility, right?
Right, right.
Because you
Well,
need, right? Go ahead.
yeah, well, I think the ability to solve problems. I mean, what makes coders great, right? I mean,
Mhm.
coders are problem solvers. Most of the coders I know are super, super smart people, but they also have persistence, because if you've ever tried to write code and spent hours trying to find a bug, right, or come up with a solution, you have to have that persistence. So I don't think we want to go in there and ruin that persistence, that relentless drive towards a solution. But I think, like most problems, awareness is the first key, right? And when I do business consulting, I call this driving towards your intent. A lot of times when businesses get off track, and programming is a business, life is a business, it's because you've lost your intent. You're trying to accomplish something. So just being aware of when someone asks us to add 1+1, we're not really trying to get 2. 2 isn't the answer to life, the universe, and everything, right?
Right.
We're adding these for a reason, to accomplish something, to get towards an intent. So I think the solution is understanding that there is an intent behind what we're asked to do, and making some effort to understand that to the degree that we can, based on our position in the company, right? And understand that there is someone at the other end of this, right? This is not just a technical problem. There's no problem that truly in the end is technical. It's all about human beings, because at the end of the day, some human being is interfacing with this, consuming this, working with this. So we have to understand human beings, even though we're applying a technical solution.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think that's a fantastic way to think about it. And whether it comes from an engineer trying to think more like that, and I know a lot of ways that especially project managers and designers have been trying to instill that a little bit more. Perhaps it's a productive tension, right, between engineers and I guess the stakeholders who are very concerned about tweaking solutions in a way that are most relevant for the end consumer. I guess it's a good way to think about it. So, yeah, Randy, we've come to the end of our questions, if you can believe it.
Oh,
It's gone
nice,
super
nice.
fast, and yeah, I
That's because
want to
we're
give you,
efficient, right? It's
ample
our
time.
efficiency.
It's about efficiency, but right now I want to get into the human of it all, and so I want to learn a little bit more about you, and especially this is an opportunity for you to talk about your work, especially if it's related to your company, House Chaos Games, or whatever other cause you're interested in. The floor is yours. Go for it.
Absolutely. Well, I've been very blessed in life. Early on, I had very great mentors. I had some people really help me out in the business world. I had a college professor who started me doing business consulting while in college, which I thought was ridiculous at the time. I was in the
Yes.
military for 9 years. I had some great officers and NCOs that really helped me. So giving back to me is very important. So I love helping businesses. I love mentoring. Obviously, I love playing games. I've played games forever. Designed games before I even knew formal games existed. So yeah, I'd love to. I mean, House Chaos Games is a passion project, but feel free to come, join our community if you're interested in games. If you want to talk about world building, game design, and truthfully, if you want to talk about business, if you're a developer who wants to go out there and start your own business or do contract work or whatever, I'm always happy to chat with people and kind of give back, in ways that people gave to me and help me smooth the path, to being successful.
Awesome. That's all very wonderful here. So, Randy Hayes, thank you so much for being on the show. You've been a really fun and enlightening guest when it comes to a lot of the interests and concerns. But at the same time, I think what you're talking about is something that goes even beyond just coding alone and helps us just learn to work a little bit better and to recognize things about our own habits that go beyond that. So, thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone else for either watching this on YouTube or listening to this episode on all of our podcasting applications. Thank you so much for being a fan of ours. And finally, if you're interested a little bit more about what we do at Educative, you can check us out at educative.io. So for all of us here at Educative, thank you so much and happy learning. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Hope you enjoyed that session. This episode is available on YouTube and also on many podcast platforms. If you'd like to be part of Educative Sessions, the forum is open now to apply via the link below. You can also email me at lee@educative.io. Lastly, don't forget to like and comment on our content. Be sure to subscribe for us as well. And of course, you can learn more about us at educative.io. Happy learning.